Going to be augering a toilet that's not flushing well. One thing you could do prior to make sure it is just isolated in the toilet, make sure it's not backing up in the bathtub or around the base of the toilet. One thing you could do is fill the bath sink, let the sink go, make sure there's no bubbling in the toilet, or run the bathtub as well. If it seems like it is just isolated in the toilet, you could get your auger. You're going to pull this out, put your auger in, push this through on. And then if it's not open by the point you get to this end, there is an extension on here. You're going to push this button in. And then it'll lock in the bottom as well. And that's what they do. Once the blockage is clear, you're going to pull this out, push this button again, make sure it locks back in the top. And then another test we could do to see if it is just a poor flushing toilet is, once you have your paper in there, put some paper in, and then you're going to get a 5-gallon bucket, and you're just going to hold it up pretty decent and pour it in there pretty quickly. And as long as your bucket goes through smoothly, you know there's no blockage in the toilet, and then you can flush it again afterwards just to see if it doesn't flush well again. Then you know that it is just an issue with the toilet flushing and not so much a blockage. Okay, so now we're going to be again assessing the poor flushing of a toilet. So you do have little jet ports underneath here. There's little holes all the way around the toilet. Sometimes when you flush a toilet, you won't see lines swirling from all around the bowl. One thing we could do is, we have a little piece of coat hanger. We're just going to be putting it up inside the jets here, working that around good. You can go all the way around the toilet. And then once you go all the way around the toilet, you're going to want to do this bottom jet as well. Make sure you clean that out well. And you can flush your toilet. And make sure you have water coming out of all these jets here. So now we're going to be changing the flapper on a toilet. Sometimes the water will seep down into the bowl. It could cause the fill valve to continuously run. The seal around the flapper might not be, completely sealed anymore, or the flapper just might not be flushing correctly. With the handle, it might need to be adjusted. So one thing we're going to do before we take this off is we're going to flush the toilet and turn the water off just to make sure there's no water left in our tank. And then we're gonna take off each side. And once we have the old flapper removed, we'll go ahead and put our new one on. This is an adjustable flapper, so we always turn the level all the way up to 10 on here. It's gonna snap in there. And then you're gonna hook it back up to your handle here. And then each toilet might be a little different to adjust your level on the chain here. You might have to adjust it up or down, and then a lot of the excess, that if you do have a lot of excess left on your chain, you're just going to want to snip that off. So now we're going to be changing the fill valve on the toilet. Again, what we're going to want to do is make sure all the water is turned off, and then there's a nut underneath here. You're going to loosen this off. So you're going to remove the nut off the bottom and lift this out the top. And we do have our new one here. This in here. Attach the nut on the bottom. Just make sure it's snug, but not too tight, just to prevent it from leaking. And we're going to be attaching our hose. Put it down there. And then sometimes, depending on the style of the tank, you can trim this back a little bit if you need to. And then you're going to fill your toilet. Once you have your water in the tank, you're gonna adjust this here up or down depending on where your water level is at on the tank. Can't be too high or it'll overflow and then it won't shut off. You are going to sink this down a little bit just to set the ball in there, and then as the tank fills, this will shut off at the spot that you adjust this to.